When to draft Javonte Williams. It's Mock Draft Monday, folks. Myself and Sky Gawasko take a deep dive right now on the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Lamarco. Today, we're kicking off our first mock draft of the season. We're excited. Yes, we're cliche as hell. Mock Draft Monday. It rhymes, people. I tried to do it on Tuesday. You can't come up with a title for the show. Had to scrap it. We pushed it back to Monday. So we're excited. We're going to be breaking it down today. We're going to be using the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard, myself and my co-host for today, Sky Gawasko. Before we get into the mock drafts, we want to make sure you're following us across the board at Razzball Fantasy. If you're listening on the podcast side, jump over to YouTube. Check out the videos. We have a bunch of information on there as well at Razzball Fantasy. So subscribe, leave comments, and join live pretty much every day at 6 p.m. PST. We're on live, so you can jump on and chat with us live. Get answers to your questions. If you have drafts coming up, we're here in person. Also, make sure you're following us at Razzball Fantasy on TikTok and IG, doing more quick hitters and daily content on there as well. And, of course, make sure you're going to razzball.com, the flagship, folks. Make sure you're checking out the latest articles on baseball, basketball, hockey, and football. And make sure you're checking out all the great tools we have on the football side right now. All right, I'm bringing in my co-host for today. It's Sky Gawasko. You can find him at Sky Gawasko on Twitter. I mean, the man, it's like, you know, I feel like I've lost you, and now you're found again. You're like, I hung out a bunch of, like, signs like lost, $15,000 reward, please bring him home. And sure enough, he's back. Sky Gawasko, what's going on, man?
Man, $15,000 is a lot more. I don't want to be self-deprecating, but I feel like that's a lot more than I would consider myself worth financially. So I appreciate the $15K. Bob, you know, a lot of movement with you and me the last couple of weeks. I had a show with DT. You were gone. You've had shows. I've been gone. Look, man, everything is to get the rest for the final push in August and then kicking off in September. And then we have a dogfight all the way through the Super Bowl in February. You and I have been doing this together on a couple platforms over the years. We know we need our stamina. So I had to get a little fam time in, a little hike sesh, a couple outdoors moves. Baseball season's on the brain past the All-Star break. I'm ready to go, man. Stoked for this mock draft. Learning a lot.
Absolutely. Before we jump into the mock draft, we have to talk breaking news. Watson is official. Well, potentially, but it sounds like he's going to be suspended 6 games. Initial reactions from you, Sky, on Deshaun Watson and guys like the skill position players for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I'll just preface this with you and I haven't really gotten super deep into this yet because this did just break a couple of hours ago. So I'm going to save a lot of the semantics and ranking disputes and all that with the Browns. First thought is, though, just on the football field, Deshaun Watson, if you're willing to draft him at all morally, he's already a top 12 quarterback for me. I just need to figure out where to put him in. Rushing upside's immense. He's been top 5, top 6 with the Houston Texans. Better scheme, better weapons in Cleveland. I like that a lot. Your boy Amari Cooper comes back onto my radar. Of course, they have a great run scheme as well. Bunch of tight ends and Njoku. The Browns all of a sudden are more interesting now. Unfortunately, your boy Jacoby Brissett takes a back seat. But what we have to dive into later is what do those first 6 games look like? And then the Browns have a really tough second half of the schedule. So even with Deshaun Watson, they have a tough stretch down the break to your fantasy playoffs. So I do like Deshaun Watson, of course, but he has a year and a half off of football. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think really, from my opinion, the good news is I don't see guys like Amari Cooper and David Njoku skyrocketing up draft boards because it is 6 games. It's not like it's a 2-game suspension. So I think that you're going to notice a kind of a flat line. If he was suspended for the season, they would nosedive. And I think if he was suspended for 2 games like that, he might have skyrocketed up. I think this kind of keeps their ADP as is. Now, if you want to hear a good breakdown about Jacoby Brissett's impact, go check out our ADP Fallers episode from a couple weeks ago. Me and Scott actually talk about what other skill position players have done with Jacoby. So you can see a baseline the first 6 weeks. Wide receiver 3 for Amari Cooper, low end borderline tight end 1 for Njoku. And then after that, when Watson comes back, both those guys could just skyrocket. So right now today, their ADP, if they stay the same, I think it's fantastic. So I'm actually interested in all the Cleveland guys now a little bit more in the receiving game because of this news, as long as they don't start creeping back up. But that's pretty much all we got for the Watson news. Let's get into the mock draft today. Now, Sky, I got you in the lab. I threw you over to the Wizard. You're going to kind of walk us through a little bit about the format we're going to use for the Draft Wizard. And if anybody's not used to what they can, how to get there, just let the people know how to do it. So let's pop this up on the screen now and go through the Draft Wizard and the settings we're going to use for the draft.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Bob. All right. So first things first, unfortunately, Fantasy Pros not a sponsor by any means, but it is a great tool that I love to use in my personal research, and also Bob likes to use as well. I tried to blow up the screen as best I could there for the YouTubers. And of course, for the podcast folks, we'll walk through this best we can. So you can use this. It's a free tool. Highly recommend doing it. draftwizard.fantasypros.com. You go into football mock draft simulator. You can set your own rankings. For sake of this sake of this mock draft, Bob and I are going to do redraft. You can do dynasty, as you see right here, but we're going to do redraft. We're going to do full PPR for this one. We'll be all over the board the next couple of weeks. Snake draft, of course. 12-team league. Keep it easy. And we're going to randomize this. I'll do it twice so you can see it. Landed on the 5th spot. We'll do it one more time. Landed on the 2nd spot. Bob and I are going to pick out of the 2-hole. If you have, like, say you're going to be in the 7th position for your home draft, you can come in here, set the league settings for your home league, and go to the 7th spot if you'd like to. For sake of randomization, we're going to go with the 2 spot here today. Roster positions, again, I can move this wherever I want, okay? For sake of this mock, we're going to do 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end mandatory, a flex, not super flex, regular flex, wide receiver, running back, tight end, 4 bench spots just to keep it a little bit quicker for the podcast and for the YouTube channel, and then no defense or kicker, but you can add those in, and you can also do IDP if you'd like to. Here's a bunch of the ADPs we're going to have considered in the system, and then we are not using a pick clock so that Bob and I can talk through picks, but you can use 30 seconds, 45, a minute, 2 minutes if you'd like to. So we're going to get this started here, start at the mock draft. And what's really cool about this is going to go very quickly here, folks, but again, we're trying to make kind of a quicker episode anyway for you. Now, you just saw Jonathan Taylor go off the board. We're picking the 2-hole, so he's the only one off the board. Bob, for me, it's easy. I'm drinking the Christian McCaffrey Kool-Aid. Spoiler alert, I just put up 3 different articles on the Razzball website that'll be dropping over the next couple of weeks. These are players not to forget about at each position. In the running back category, I felt I had to actually mention not to forget about Christian McCaffrey after 2 frustrating years. For me, Bob, in the 2-hole in a full PPR league, Christian McCaffrey is an easy pick. Are you thinking anybody else? Do you want to go running back somewhere else across the board? You thinking wide receiver? How do you feel about the first pick here on our team?
Yeah, I'm going to go CMC myself. I 100% agree. I just think that the upside's just too high. I think outside of JT, we haven't seen any of the current guys with their current situations meet that peak that a guy like CMC can go. So I'm all upside, baby. Let's go CMC.
I totally agree. Now let's take a look here. Now, up at the top of the episode, Bob, your initial thought was, where do you draft Javonte Williams, right? We've been talking a lot about this. Melvin Gordon's back. Russell Wilson comes in. The Broncos are looking better. Javonte goes here, right? Middle of the 2nd round. You and I did a mock before this on the tool, and he went in the first pick of the 2nd round. You can see on the draft board here, I won't go through every pick, but for the YouTubers, you can see the draft board here. Are there any major surprises of who went in the first round or 2 before we make our 2nd pick?
You know, for me, when I'm looking through these right now, I actually, it's Saquon going at 206. I love Saquon. I'm into it. I'm just surprised that, this is kind of an eye-opening experience, because a lot of times I'm thinking in my mind, I'm going to get Saquon at the 2-3 turn, but this is a clear indication he's going to start probably creeping up into that early 2nd round by the middle of the summer. A couple of good preseason highlights, and this boy's going to be going at the 1-2 turn. So yeah, that is kind of notable for me.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I'm thinking even, CeeDee Lamb for me as the 5th wide receiver off the board's a little steep so far there. So anyway, good look at, we won't do this for every single round, but a good look for the listeners and the viewers here of how the tool works, so we can breeze that up. Okay, let's take a look here at our suggestions. So again, Bob, way too early for a tight end, I would assume. So let's look at the running backs and wide receivers. Positionally, what are you feeling here? Or do you want to take a look at who's available? Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Keenan Allen, the top 4 based on ECR, James Conner, David Montgomery, Travis Etienne, and Cam Akers at the running back position.
So I always recommend drafting with tiers. If you have a site that does it, my thing is James Conner is in a tier of his own. This guy, when he played without Chase Edmonds last year, was averaging 26 PPR points per game. He was absolutely elite. Now you got Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams backing him up. I just think the upside is a clear break at the running back position. So I would probably go James Conner here because we're close to that pivot. I'm also thinking that we're probably going to get a really premier wide receiver. So I'd go James Conner with this pick.
With the pick of us on the corner, we're going to get either Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, or Keenan Allen, right, on the next one because there's only 2 picks in between us. So for me personally, I think James Conner's maybe a little early in the second round, but if he was our 3rd round pick, it would feel better, and it's pretty much the same. I like that you want to go get him. Also, another couple things here again, strength of schedule you see right here in Fantasy Pros, right? So David Montgomery, according to Fantasy Pros, has the #1 strength of schedule with the Bears rushing attack. James Conner has the 28th. I'm not going to not pick guys because of that, but it's something to monitor. Let's go with James Conner here, number 2. And again, Deebo Samuel. Oh, this is nice, man. I'm going to actually make an executive decision here and go with Mike Evans. Deebo Samuel and let's see here. I'm going to bring this up real quick. Deebo Samuel and Tyreek Hill went back-to-back. Honestly, man, my boy Deebo just got paid. Tyreek did catch a touchdown that looked somewhat in stride from Tua the other day. I like to see that. But honestly, man, I have Mike Evans above both of those guys. Yes, Julio comes to town. Yes, they have Chris Godwin potentially coming back quicker than we thought so. But Mike Evans is good for 1,000 yards every year of his career. He's going to be good for probably double-digit touchdowns from Tom Brady. He's a great #1 wide receiver with a great floor and weekly winning upside as well. So I like this pick a lot. Let's go back to the draft board just really quickly here, just to take a look. Some of the quarterbacks are coming off the board now. Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Justin Herbert right before us. We also have a number of wide receivers and tight ends coming off the board, Kelsey, Andrews, and Waller, as well as Kyle Pitts as well. So again, we're back on the turn, Bob. I'll turn it over to you. What are you feeling? Our team so far is let's see where I can bring
Mike Evans, James Conner, and CMC, bro. Come on, you don't know that?
There it is. I was trying to pick it up. Okay, so go ahead, man. Who are you feeling?
Let's browse through first because this is kind of the dead zone now. This is the peak RB dead zone. The 5 probably top tight ends are gone. You're going to start looking at maybe potentially a QB. I mean, listen, I am a big fan of a guy like Elijah Mitchell, but I want to look at the receivers here. The running back dead zone has been oddly consistent. And I think when we get to this point, the receivers are probably our best bet. So guys like Mike Williams, I'm super high on. You and me have talked for years about the second-year leap. I think this second year of the offense for the Chargers is going to go nuclear. And we talked about in a previous show that the Chargers, when they were throwing well and Herbert was humming, Mike Williams was going off. When Mike Williams had his dip, so did Herbert. And I think Herbert's to the moon this year. And I think I want to ride those coattails all day. So I'd probably go Mike Williams here.
100% agree. Herbert is my MVP for the season right now. I like Mike Williams a lot. And Bob, you just had mentioned earlier that you like to draft in tiers. I also do. Again, that's an availability that you can do here on the tool. So in this tier, I agree that Mike Williams has the best upside and the best floor in this group. If we're not going to go George Kittle, I just want to make sure he's the last top 5 left. You do not want to go George Kittle. You'd rather go Mike Williams. I just want to confirm that.
Yeah. I do confirm.
Deal. All right, let's go with Mike Williams here. And we are back on the clock. And George Kittle did fall anyway. Do we want to go Kittle here and solidify with our 5th pick the tight end position, or are you looking at another running back wide receiver?
So, I mean, at this point in the draft, like we talked about, I mean, Josh Jacobs, I'm not too high on. J.K. Dobbins, I just wrote an article about injuries and like the likelihood a guy's going to come back and be well. So I'm not really saying. I think Elijah Mitchell's the one guy here that I kind of am starting to think, I mean, in the 5th round, it's full PPR. I get that. But like literally the 49ers run scheme is a machine. This is a 2-receiver league too. So we got our 2 stud receivers. Now it's really a flex spot. I think between Allen Robinson and Elijah Mitchell are probably my 2 picks in this range. Allen Robinson, at this point, Van Jefferson just had knee surgery. The number 3 receiver might not even be a thing in the Rams for the first couple weeks of the season. So it could be the Allen Robinson Cooper Kupp show. I think I want to get a piece of that offense too. So I'd go either Allen Robinson or Elijah Mitchell.
How against it are you to pick George Kittle here? I'm not really an early tight end guy, but in the 5th round, solidifying this, George Kittle's actually been better in a per game basis without Jimmy Garoppolo over the last 3 seasons. Because he fell to the 5th round, I personally would love to lock this up. There's a lot of wide receivers left. Unless we're going to go running back, I kind of feel George Kittle here. It's George Kittle or Allen Robinson or Elijah Mitchell. You down for Kittle?
Yeah, I would be down. I think that would be a good option too in the 5th round.
Let's do it. Okay, then we got, of course, our big swing here. So we got to go pretty much through 2 rounds. So all of our guys are going to be gone at this point. But let's take a look and see who came off the board and who is left here. A quick look at the draft board. Bob, we're in the 6th round here. We do not have a quarterback, but we've got every other position. Mike Thomas just came off the board. I think that would have been a nice one there. Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson off the board. So now we're looking at middle round quarterbacks, Gabriel Davis, Chris Godwin, Rashad Bateman, Darnell Mooney off the board here. So let's take another look at the squad. CMC, James Conner, Mike Evans, Mike Williams, and George Kittle. How are you feeling here? Running backs, wide receivers. Now we are right in the middle of that quote-unquote RB dead zone, which I don't love. Taking a look at the wide receivers here. Elijah Moore, Adam Thielen, Hunter Renfrow. Nuke Hopkins missing 6 games, but eventually he becomes a value. How are you feeling about pick number 6?
Well, I think at this point, too, we just saw kind of a QB run, right? So we have to factor that in. Now, if we go back to that cheat sheet with the draft board, now, does the team – sorry, go to the draft board. Yeah, does the team in between us have a quarterback yet? They don't, and we just saw a QB run. So if we thought there was a difference-making quarterback like a Jalen Hurts in this situation, this is where I would kind of consider. If I feel like there is a tier break, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, maybe there's enough of guys there that we could probably even wait another round on that. Even Trey Lance probably later would be fine. So I'm actually okay waiting on quarterback. Running back situation, I'm big. Listen, at this point in the draft, Miles Sanders and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are always in the back of my mind. Listen, Miles Sanders, for what it's worth, averaged 6 yards per carry last year, folks, and he was terrible. Everybody hates him. He's the worst. He averaged 6 yards per carry in the NFL, and everybody hates him. It makes no sense. He just didn't score any touchdowns. I do see regression to the mean for the touchdowns, but also the yards per carry. So I actually think Miles Sanders, to me, as a RB3, and Clyde, both those guys I'm in on in this range. So I would actually pick either one of those guys.
Oh, man. I have been really staunch against Miles Sanders, but I hear you, and I like this Philadelphia offense this year. I'm going to go against Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Again, I just dropped my running backs not to forget about article. Ronald Jones, believe it or not, folks, popped off the page for me. Clyde is starting on the PUP list. Rojo gets a fresh start. I think he's going to get early down work. Clyde has not been great on the goal line. I'm going to lean Miles Sanders here and make that executive decision. Kyler Murray, Adam Thielen off the board. Bob, unless you want to wait for Trey Lance, it might be a good time to get a quarterback. What are you feeling?
Yeah. Hurts is my guy. Honestly, Hurts is going to go. I think he's one of the dark horses for QB1 overall this season.
100% agree.
He's a second-year leap guy. We've talked about this for years. Second year in a system in the passing game is a thing. I think he goes nuclear this year, especially with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. And by the way, Dallas Goedert is a freaking stud too. So I think he has pretty much everything going for him, and I'm all in on that pick.
I totally agree. Quick recap. We're looking at our bench again. We only have 4 more picks left. We're kind of making this quick for sake of the episode. Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, Mike Evans, Mike Williams, George Kittle, Miles Sanders. Bob, I like this team a lot. There's a lot of risk here.
Oh, yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, risky. James Conner, risky. Mike Williams, risky. George Kittle, somewhat risky. Miles Sanders, risky. Jalen Hurts, we all believe could be top 5, maybe top 1, but also risky depending on what happens there. We're at the point of the draft where you start picking high upside boom guys, but let's keep an eye out for a floor guy such as maybe a Robert Woods and Allen Robinson, somebody like that. But I'll let you take the reins here. We got 4 picks left. Let's look at a couple running backs, a couple wide receivers.
My favorite mid-round receiver is Allen Lazard. I will go to bat for him all day as the new number 1 wide receiver for the Packers. I am absolutely obsessed with him as a player. I love him a lot. I don't know if we could probably get him on the next pick around. And
I think
that's
we can.
Really, yeah, and that's probably fine. But Allen Lazard's someone I'm targeting. Treylon Burks is another player. My eyes have been open to rookie wide receivers who get higher draft capital. So those guys going in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round for rookies typically are becoming number 1 receivers on their team, and they do return value later in the season. So I even wouldn't be against him. But another guy that probably is not getting enough love is going to be Devin Singletary. I think because of the James Cook signing, people are more hesitant, but Devin Singletary was absolutely dominant down the stretch last year. Not a lot of running backs can get 20 points per game. He was close during the last 7 or 8 weeks of the season, including the playoffs. So I don't mind him either here. So I actually don't mind any of these running backs. Chase Edmonds, like you're waving over right now. Damian Harris. I think Damian Harris's ADP has been suppressed so much. Now everyone's against Damian Harris, but he's going ADP RB 28 on average, and he finishes the top 20. So he's already being discounted. Don't double discount him. I think if we went wide receiver heavy, a guy like Damian Harris is my RB2 wouldn't be terrible here. And then finally, Chase Edmonds. I know you like Chase a little bit. I just don't really know what's going to happen with him, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel. I just don't know what's going to happen in Miami. So maybe I'm a little more, hesitant on him, but I do think he could be great in that system.
Quick thoughts on your boy Rashad Penny. Chris Carson done, unfortunately, had to retire due to his neck injury. We kind of saw that coming. Ken Walker is going to be a lot of fun, but Rashad Penny should get the first LUD. And we saw last year, again, Devin Singletary was amazing in the first final 5 games. So was Rashad Penny. I know you rode both these guys down the stretch last season. I'm also okay to fade Chase Edmonds and maybe even Damon Harris for another round. I'm down with Allen Lazard next round. Maybe we should go running back here to get one more in the depth piece. I think it's between Singletary and Penny. And I kind of lead Penny, although I'm maybe Walker as a handcuff or something, but feeling a Seattle running back.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, listen, Rashad Penny, I did analysis over, and might as well, right? We might as well talk through these picks in detail. It's fine. I think I did an analysis over the last 5 or 6 seasons of the last 5 weeks of the season and how good players are. Players that meet that 20 points per game threshold and 21 in PPR, how good did they do the next season? Well, Rashad Penny met that threshold last season. He averaged over the last 5 weeks, 21 points in PPR. They are pretty dominant. Like the next season, those players typically come out on a 70% clip and are good for fantasy. So there's a very good chance Penny comes out and plays well. The problem is there's no Russell Wilson. You're playing with Geno. When we talk about the things that you want to fade for running backs, number 1, bad quarterback play. Number 2 is bad offensive line play. And the Seattle Seahawks check off both. So I personally would go Singletary. Give me Josh Allen and that Bills offense over Penny any day.
Done. Singletary, and then we will go ahead, and we've already talked about it. I agree with you. It might be a little early compared to like ADP, but I'm going to go with Allen Lazard here as well. We've got 2 picks left, Bob. Now, of course, usually in a regular league, you're probably going to have a defense, probably going to have a kicker. You're going to have like 3 more bench spots. So we would have another, 20 minutes of content here if we had a full draft, but we're not going to do that intentionally. We've got 2 picks left. Again, it looks like we have 1 quarterback, 1 tight end. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs, 1, 2, 3 wide receivers. For symmetry, maybe 1 more wide receiver, and then kind of a flex here. How are you feeling about our last 2 picks?
Let's talk about one thing real quick. Trey Lance is now on the board here. And we went Jalen Hurts a couple rounds early. So let's go back to the draft board if we can. Like think about it right now. Today we're looking at Christian Kirk in this round right now. But instead, let's say we passed on Jalen Hurts and we said we're going to wait on Trey Lance, what would that have looked like in your opinion? Who would you rather have taken instead of Hurts at this range? Would it have been Adam Thielen? Would it have been a guy like Tony Pollard, Kareem Hunt? All the guys that, look at that tight end run in that round. That's pretty crazy. Drake London, what's a guy that stands out to you that maybe we could have taken earlier and then taken Trey Lance later?
Yeah, what I think is crazy too is, man, I think Kareem Hunt probably is the guy. Kareem Hunt's another guy that was in my article, and I hate to cherry pick all these guys out, but they pop off the page now that I've done extra research. Kareem Hunt could get traded. If he gets traded halfway through the season, you have an RB1 on another team. There's 10 teams I could rattle off right off the bat that could take Kareem Hunt as the number 1 running back tomorrow as he steps in. That's huge for your fantasy team. You're getting him in the 8th round. So, and we know that what he could do on the Browns offense. So that's a guy I probably would have taken. Take an extra long look at Tony Pollard. I do like Adam Thielen. You just got to think of him as a wide receiver 3 these days. Yeah, I mean, if we didn't go Jalen Hurts, although I like the pick, if we didn't, though, we get Jalen Hurts light right now with and that's 3 rounds later. So that's a good call.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to bring that up because this is kind of the strategy behind this. Like if you take Hurts, listen, I'm all in on Hurts. I'm never going to walk out of a draft taking Hurts in that 7th round thinking, oh man, I shouldn't have taken him. Because like Hopkins, Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, do any of those guys scream value to me? No. But at the same time, I think I'm good with Hurts there. But let's pop back over because there's a couple this is probably a range where obviously if we went deeper, we would probably want to fill up on running backs too, because we essentially have, 4 running backs, but it's a short bench. We'd probably look at but this is a receiver-rich area. Christian Kirk has been standing out at Jags camp. Traylon Burks, we've already talked about. Russell Gage, by the way, is someone that I am going to continue to think about because he's now playing with Tom Brady. And if Godwin comes out slow and there's no tight end of note to take over passing game work, Brady supported 3 receivers already with Gronk. Now you take Gronk off the field. What can that third receiver do, or potentially 2 be in this offense? I think Gage is someone I really like as well in this range. So I'd go, Christian Kirk, potential number 1 on the team, Traylon Burks and Russell Gage. And Tony, as a Giants fan, I just saw a couple highlights. Actually, today was the Tony day for me. I was actually watching some highlights of Tony. I got excited. I'm not going to lie. I was into it. I was kind of into it. So I might be picking up some Tony this offseason. But I think I'd probably go Gage here because of that pass volume of that offense.
Yeah, I'm going to take Gage too. Even though they got Julio and they're bringing back Godwin quickly, I think Gage is going to be the first one out the gate. Christian Kirk better be the number 1 for Jacksonville. They paid him. I do like Trevor Lawrence this year. I like ETN as well. I wrote about him in the article, but Russell Gage is my guy as well. And I think he's going to start falling now because Julio is in town. Now, Bob, I'm not a huge Chase Claypool guy. First of all, he's in the Mike Tomlin doghouse. I don't like those kind of dudes, but he's a beast. I just want to put a note here that I would fade Chase Claypool here. And I would end up, I think I would end up going with, some of those other rookie wide receivers instead. I think just Chase Claypool's gotten a lot of rep, but I think I would actually end up going with other people there. I just want to bring that up as we're in the rookie wide receiver area. For sake of this mock draft, man, we are into our last pick. Again, we would usually have about 3 or 4 more. Defense, kicker. We'll get into some other rounds another time. Too early to pick a second quarterback, but Trey Lance is still on the board. So we'll just keep proving our point of we like Jalen Hurts, but Trey Lance, man, if he is who we think he could be in that 49er offense, he's going to be a league winner in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, which is just insane in single quarterback leagues. We got a last pick. Who are you feeling?
Go to the QBs, because I want to just look at some real quick, because this is kind of the reason why I think a lot of people, when you start taking, like we took a 5 and 7, we took a tight end and quarterback. So now it's like kind of doesn't make a lot of sense for us to take. We need to rebuild our depth a little bit at running back and receiver. However, when you do fade a quarterback and tight end and you start taking rate on flyers, it does make sense to take 2 because these guys are going late. We pretend like we know that these flyers are going to work out, but we don't. But this is the best part about waiting on QB and tight end, because now you can justify taking a 10th, 11th, a 12th, and a 13th round pick on 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks, because you have 9 picks already amongst running backs and wide receivers. So this is just one of the things that if, for example, you took Trey Lance here and you're like, listen, I'm not really sure if Trey Lance is going to be a thing, you could take another quarterback in this range that you like, whether it's a high floor guy, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins types, whatever. Even if you want to get crazy and take Justin Fields, say, you know what, I'm going all in these young running quarterbacks and see which one hits. Like a lot of people did a few years ago with Mitch Trubisky. I did this with Mitch Trubisky and Lamar Jackson. It sounds crazy now, but it worked out with Lamar Jackson. It did work with Mitch, but I didn't give a shit. I actually picked 11th and 12th round, both those guys. So it's just something that reminds me of that too. But let's jump back over to the running back and wide receiver, see what we got here. Now, what are you thinking?
We're full on in handcuff mode, right? And I'm just thinking of like game breakers on their own if the guy were to go down, because we're picking handcuffs at this point. None of these guys are going to be starters off the bat. One guy that jumps off, I like Jamal Williams a lot, but Khalil Herbert jumps off the ball. I think he's just maybe straight up better than David Montgomery or as good. If Montgomery were to go down, Khalil Herbert stepped in and did just as well last year. I like Gus Edwards, but he's still injured coming off his own injury. We get way down here. Now we're taking flyer. Brian Robinson might have time, but probably not right away. My boy James White, but he's coming off an injury. Zamir White, I think, takes over for Josh Jacobs, but that's my own thing and not worth drafting.
Zamir White was supposed to take over for Josh Jacobs 3 years ago, even when he was in college. That's how much you wanted Josh Jacobs.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Let's take a quick look at the wide receivers, and we'll make our pick.
I do want to bring up one running back. One running back is Mark Ingram. Because of the Alvin Kamara situation, it sounds like he's not going to be suspended this year. That's a PSA, by the way. Alvin Kamara, it sounds like he's not going to be suspended because his court date got pushed to September. But Mark Ingram is somebody that you should continue to monitor, because if Kamara is out, there is nobody there. It's going to be Mark Ingram as the starter running back on a solid team with 3 really good receivers and Jameis Winston. So
yeah, Tony Brooks Jr. is going to be the other guy there. Mark Ingram, 32 years old, but he hasn't been running as much over the last couple of years. And of course, he loves the Saints. Saints love him. That's a good call out there. Just a quick shout out to your boys, Kirk and Tony, both here in tier 5 left. Also, again, Treylon Burks, some of these other guys, your boy Tyler Boyd, I know RIP from last year, but some other options here for, deep depth, high upside guys, Rondale Moore, Valdez-Scantling, your boy Kenny Golladay, Tim Patrick, Sky Moore has a lot of rep. There's a lot of wide receivers here left. What are you feeling for the last pick?
Well, that's the thing, right? So this is technically this would be in a normal league, probably still like your 12th round pick. This is not that early. I mean, late. But for this exercise, number 1, Christian Kirk, FYI. I think it's hard to pass up on a guy who's flashing in camp, who, by the way, was chosen by this coaching staff. Doug Peterson's a really good coach. Trevor Lawrence, good pedigree as the first overall pick. I think he makes a ton of sense. But I think Kadarius Toney is just going to be special. I think I don't know what it is. I get some good feeling. I get like Odell Beckham 2014, 15 range, vibes from him because Galladay's not separating at camp. And Tony is just making plays, and he's doing things that he wasn't doing in college, going up, making contested catches and one-on-ones, doing things that, you don't see a lot. And plus he had like a well over 2 yards per route run last year. So that's like unheralded, dominant, efficiency stat. So I think it's between those two guys. And then I would also say Burks, because Tannehill, you can say what you want about him. That offense is still going to get things done. They even when A.J. Brown was out, they still figured out ways to win with Westbrook, Akeen catching passes. So I think that, Burks, those are 3 guys would be my final pick. So I'll let you choose from those 3 unless there's another guy you want to talk about.
No, I like it. I actually would love Robert Woods instead of Treylon Burks, but Robbie's off the board here. I like this pick here. And just for sake of a quick conversation, if we were to wait on late tight end right now, there's a bunch of guys, just take flyers. Evan Ingram is back. Gerald Everett's a guy that I love for the Chargers. Albert O, Irv Smith potentially as well. So again, if you're doing that late round quarterback, late round tight end, you get doubled up. Here's some of the options you could be looking at here. Bob, let's see. I'm actually really impressed with Trevor Lawrence so far and Christian Kirk. I like Kadarius Toney, but I don't believe in Daniel Jones. I like Treylon Burks, but I don't love the offense, and he has to be uber efficient, and A.J. Brown, which I just don't know that he's going to be as a rookie. So process of elimination, I'm actually going to go with Christian Kirk, who better be the number 1 because they just gave him the bag to kick off the season here. Here is our ranking. Everybody can see it here. So Fantasy Pros, kind of cool. They give you a score at the end based on ECR, ADP, how your team rounds out overall. Drafting Christian McCaffrey doesn't hurt your score ever. But overall, we got a 93 out of 100. Now, look, this doesn't mean anything. A teams are terrible and F teams are great. In fantasy, it's all based out on health and luck a little bit. But our team here, Bob, I'll give one more recap of the roster. You give us a breakdown. We'll get out of here. Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, Miles Sanders, Devin Singletary as our running backs. Mike Evans, Mike Williams, Alan Lazard, Russell Gage, and Christian Kirk as our wide receivers, and George Kittle as our tight end. What's your favorite pick, and maybe a pick you would have thrown back if you were to do this again?
My favorite pick, you know what? I got to tell you, we got a lot of guys I'm really high on. So I think up until Kittle, I think I would honestly say Kittle, I don't realize how good he was last year. Like, it's super weird. Like, he didn't seem like he was good, but he was the tight end 3 in PPR last year on a points per game basis. And I think personally, I have to do more research on Kittle with Trey Lance, the two or three games that Lance played, because if he falls to the 5th round because people are hesitant, it might be great for us to pull the trigger. And I would almost say this is flawless because the rest of these guys, we've talked about a bunch of times. Miles Sanders, the Eagles led the NFL in rushing attempts from basically the second half on, basically the last 10 weeks. And Sanders was in and out of the lineup. The guy was rushing for 100 yards and not scoring touchdowns. That's not going to happen again. So I do love him. Alan Lazard, probably my favorite mid-round guy I've talked about a million times. So I think across the board, I think it's a 99 out of 100 personally, but I'll take a 93. What about you, Scott? What's your favorite pick?
Yeah, I have this actually ranked as a 102 out of 100. So I also
nice. Let's go.
Yeah, I like it. You know what? My favorite pick, I guess, is going to be Mike Williams, just because, again, I think Mike Williams could be a top 5 wide receiver, and you're getting him in the 4th round, the 5th round, depending on your settings. I like that pick a lot. I believe in Justin Herbert. You guys know I'm a duck. I'm biased, but he is my MVP pick right now. And the Chargers are my low-key Super Bowl representative for the AFC right now. So love me some Mike Williams. The player I would have thrown back maybe and looked elsewhere, and I don't hate James Conner overall, but Christian McCaffrey and James Conner and Miles Sanders and Devin Singletary as our running back core, Bob, gives me the heebie-jeebies. I love CMC, obviously. I love James Conner, and the other two guys are auxiliaries, but I'm not really an injury-prone guy. I am, though, a injury-consistent player fader, and James Conner was healthy last year, but he was hurt before that. Christian McCaffrey, we know, wins leagues by himself when healthy, but he only played, he's missed 18 games in 2 years. That's obviously a problem. Miles Sanders, hit or miss. Devin Singletary might just be faded out. So our running back core, I think, looks good on paper if healthy, but if you dive deeper into it, it's a little sketch for me. So I think like David Montgomery is less exciting for me than James Conner, less upside, but maybe more floor, maybe comfortable weekly. So I mean, that might be a player that I would have swapped looking back on our overall roster.
Can we X out of this real quick and look at the draft board, because there was some key runs in this draft. Like, first off, the one thing we always want to talk about is like when the quarterbacks and those single key positions go, because like the tight ends early, like Kelsey kind of separated himself a little bit at the 201, and then it goes to 303 for Mark Andrews, and then Darren Waller, and then it separates to Kyle Pitts and then George Kittle. So, I mean, overall, when I'm looking at all this, it's kind of like, all right, there wasn't really necessarily a run on tight ends. Maybe if you go down a little bit where Dalton Schultz is. But overall, I think that the tight ends, this is the value we talk about, because you're not drafting the tight end 2 versus, the tight end 1 necessarily. You're drafting, like, when you take the tight end 1, you're probably avoiding a top 5 to 6 wide receiver, top 5 to 6 running back. And then technically you could draft a tight end 4 3+ rounds later. So this is something you have to consider at the single QB. Like when you have only one tight end, one quarterback, and then you see that run at quarterback, those are some great quarterbacks, really.
Yeah.
But after that run, the key thing to remember is, we pulled this trigger on Hurts, but when you see that maybe 8 teams in your league has a quarterback already in a single QB league, maybe we don't pull the trigger. Maybe we say, all right, listen, we know that there's only 3 other guys in the league that don't have a quarterback. Yes, Hurts was a difference maker for us, but in some cases you have to think to yourself, play the odds. We knew that we loved Trey Lance. Maybe we roll the dice. If there was a receiver or running back in that range that we had to have, that's where you say, okay, I'll take that running back receiver, build my depth. I know that I can get another quarterback in a couple rounds because most teams already have one. So Those are little things during the draft. That's why it's important to pay attention to what people are doing in your league during the draft, because you can make decisions on your draft picks based on that. So maybe I'm having a little Trey Lance envy here, but at the same time, I think Hurts is going to go. I think Hurts is going to go nuclear this year.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, those are things that, like, I usually don't go quarterback and tight end early. It happened to work in this particular draft. But I usually don't do both or fade both, right? And so we talked about the doubling up a quarterback or tight end late if you don't go with those guys early. So I like it a lot, Bob. First mock draft officially of the Razzball squad. We're going to have a lot more, of course, every single Monday. We'll be back with more. Drop a comment below and let us know if you have particular settings, right? Superflex we'll get into, of course. Dynasty, we're a little bit past, so we're probably not going to do Dynasty mocks at this point. But, if you have crazy settings or you do like, all flex positions is kind of a fun one, tight end premium, whatever, drop a comment below and let us know what style you'd like us to get into for particular mocks.
Yeah, and make sure you're following the whole YouTube channel, folks. We'll be doing mock drafts every week. We're doing a news and notes show tomorrow. We got ranking shows coming up and Dynasty talk throughout the week. So make sure you're following the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel, and make sure you're checking us up on IG and TikTok at Razzball Fantasy. And, of course, going to Razzball.com for all your needs in every sport you can imagine. We do cricket probably. That's how ridiculous we do things at Razzball.com. But once again, I'm your host, Bobby LaMarco. For my co-host today, Sky Gawasco, thank you for joining. We are out of here.